Awesome. So now that we have some foundational knowledge as to how to work within Fusion, let's try to piece together this acro to dirt bike transition. So before we dive deep into compositing everything together, let's take a step back and try to understand what it is that we're trying to do within this composition. All we're really trying to do is to go from one environment to another. We're going from the acro environment into the dirt bike environment. Now, what I want is for the acro clip to end on just the blue sky. Now, if we continue to play the clip past the blue sky, we can see that the camera continues to move and it reveals mountains and other things in the frame. We basically want the acro clip to end on blue sky, and then that's it. From there, what I'm going to want to do is go to the dirt bike clip and isolate the dirt biker in the sky by keying out the sky so it's just the dirt biker. Then from there, we'll be able to animate the dirt biker from out of frame into frame. So at that point, we have the isolated dirt biker, but we're still working with the background, the blue sky of the acro clip. If everything goes as planned, this should look seamless. So now that we have a plan and a better idea of what it is we're actually trying to do in Fusion, let's jump in and start piecing this thing together. Also, if you click the link down below, you can download the original clips that I'm using in this composition so you guys can try this out yourselves. All right, so I'm at the point in my timeline where the transition happens, and we can see that we have two separate clips over here. Now, as we learned before, there are different ways that we can bring our clips into Fusion. Now, in this situation, the dirt bike clip is pretty much exactly where I want it to be in my timeline. I know I'm not going to want to retime this at all because it works perfectly with the clip afterwards. So I know I don't need to retime this clip. The only thing I might want to retime is the acro clip itself. So what I'm actually going to do is extend the dirt bike clip to the duration I want to be working with, which is this length of time over here. And what I can do is right click on the dirt bike clip over here and make it a new Fusion clip. And now what I can do is go into my media pool, go into my Fusion folder over here. And what I can do is create a new folder, Command-Shift-N, call this acro to dirt bike transition. Click enter and open this up. And what I'm going to do is actually just drag in the acro clip into this folder over here so I can easily access this clip once I'm in Fusion. So I'll just close the media pool, and with my dirt bike clip selected, I'm going to open up Fusion. Now we have the dirt bike Fusion clip in here, and we're going to want to add that acro clip. So let's go to the media pool here, and we already have this acro to dirt bike Fusion folder open. This is the clip that we want. Let's drag it in here. And now what we can do is load this media into the first viewer over here by pressing 1, and we are able to scrub through. Now, obviously, this is the wrong part of the clip. We don't want this part of the clip. We want the part where she kicks the camera. So what we're going to do is make sure that we have that node selected. I'm just going to close the media pool, and I'm going to play with the trim here. So we want this to start at the point where she kicks the camera. I think it's about here. Yeah, this point right here. So somewhere around there. She comes through, kicks the camera, and we're basically going to want to time this so that the dirt biker is just coming into the sky when we have a full shot of the sky on the acro clip. So that's about here. But the dirt biker is already well into the sky on this side. So I'm going to want the acro clip to just be full sky at this point in time when the dirt biker is just getting fully into the sky over here. So we're going to want to reposition this acro clip a little bit. So we're going to want to push it forwards a little bit. And we can actually go into the keyframes window here and play around with the timing in here. So because we didn't rename our clips, our media in nodes, so let's rename these. This top one, F2, is acro, and this bottom one is dirt bike. So now let's go to the acro clip in the keyframes window and move this around. Of course, we need to have it loaded in our viewer, so we'll press 1, and we want it to fill the frame right there. So that looks good to me. Now what we want to do is actually trim the end of the acro clip so it ends here. So let's zoom out and let's grab the end of the acro clip. Let's trim it to there. And now what we want to do is just hold this frame of the sky from the acro clip for the rest of the duration of this entire composition. So what I can do in the inspector here for the acro clip, I can bump this hold last frame slider up. And now if we scrub through here, we can see that for the rest of the duration of the composition, the acro clip is just sky. So we basically just held that one frame for the rest of the composition. And that should work perfectly for what we're trying to do here. Awesome. So the next step is to actually merge both of these pieces of media together. So what we could do is just grab the output of the acro clip, bring it over here, automatically create a merge. And let's think about what it is that we're trying to do here. We want the acro clip to be the background, the dirt bike clip to be the foreground, right? Because we are starting with the acro clip and then we are bringing the dirt bike clip over top of the acro clip. So let's grab the merge, hit Command T to swap those inputs. And I'm actually just going to move these over as well. I want things to visually kind of make sense to me as well. We're starting with the acro clip on the left here, and then we're introducing the dirt bike clip over top of the acro clip. Now let's scrub through here. The timing looks good. Now what we're going to want to do is isolate the dirt biker from the rest of the image here. We don't want any of the sand. We don't want any of these bushes. We just want the dirt biker. And this is where we are going to want to use the delta keyer. This is a really great keyer with Infusion. So in our nodes window, let's press Shift Spacebar and let's type in delta, D-E-L-T-A, click enter and hold shift. Let's drag this over here. And let's load this delta keyer up into our second viewer. Now, with these controls over here, we are able to select what color we want to remove, which color do we want to key out of the shot. So we can grab this little eyedropper here and move it over, and we can get a live update as to what it is we are keying out. So if we zoom in here, that looks pretty good. I would say that that's decent. Let's view the media out so we can load this up into our second viewer and just to get an idea of what's going on. So obviously this looks crazy. This is nowhere near what we want. And one thing we want to take into consideration is anything before the dirt biker fully in the sky, we can't really use. We could potentially isolate him by using more keyers to key out the sand, and maybe doing some masking, but that's a lot of extra work and I don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is actually trim the beginning of this dirt bike clip because we don't need anything before this frame right here. So I'm going to go to the start of the clip, trim it. That way he just pops up at that point where he can actually be fully isolated just by this delta keyer. Sweet. Now, obviously, this doesn't look realistic at all because he's just flying in from the direct center of the frame. He just pops into frame. What we're going to want to do is animate the dirt biker's position so he starts out of frame and comes into frame. Now, because of the movement of both the cameras, they're going from bottom right to top left, it makes sense for him to fly into the scene in the same way. So I'm going to want to animate the dirt biker's position from probably down here out of the frame into the frame and eventually to the point where this clip is back to its original position and scale. And we want the dirt biker's position and scale to be back to normal at this point right here. And the reason we want it to be back to normal here is because we can see that the tire is getting cut off. If the dirt biker's position is, down here in the bottom corner and all of a sudden his tire's getting cut off, it's going to look bad. So let's grab a transform node. Let's select the delta keyer because we want the transform node after delta. Let's throw that in there. And now with the transform node selected, let's move him around. This is what I'm talking about. If he's over here when his tire starts to leave the frame, then this is like really obvious that something's off here. So at this point in time, we are going to need the dirt biker to be in this exact position and scale. So what we can do is select the transform node and create a keyframe for the center, the pivot, and the size. So at this point, everything is normal. Everything is at its default settings. The transform is, we haven't actually moved it at all. At this point, we want things to go back to their normal position. Now, if we go back to the beginning of the dirt bike clip, what we're going to want to do is grab this clip and move him out of the frame, probably somewhere around there. And now if we scrub through, we can see he's coming into the frame from outside of the frame, and then exactly where his wheel leaves the frame, that's where the transform node gets back to its original position, allowing us to hide the fact that, you know, he's from a different shot. We don't want to reveal that, and by showing that edge, it would just be obvious that like something's wrong here. Now, obviously, we still have some spill that's leaking over from the delta keyer of the original Sky, but don't worry about that because we are going to be masking out the dirt biker in a little bit to isolate him even more and to remove any of these artifacts or anything else from the original clip that we don't want in this. We're at a good place right now. Let's play back this in real time, see what it looks like. That looks pretty good, but we can see that the clip looks kind of messed up over here. If we bypass the delta keyer, Command P, this is what it's supposed to look like. So the delta keyer is making things look kind of weird. So what we're going to want to do is actually bring back the full original dirt bike clip. So let's copy the original dirt bike media in node, Command C. Let's deselect our nodes, Command V, paste it in here. And what we're going to want to do is just merge this over top of everything else again. Now, we are going to want to play with the opacity of this clip so that from this point around here, we're going to want to bring the opacity from 0 to 100. Now, remember, like we learned before, we are able to animate the opacity in the merge node as well. So with the merge node of the second dirt bike clip selected, we can play with the blend just like that. So what we're going to want to do is animate this blend so it goes from 0 to 100 over time, or from 0 to 1 over time. So at this stage, we'll want the blend to be at 0. So we'll set a keyframe here at 0, and we'll move forwards a couple frames to probably about there, and we'll bump this blend up to 1. Now let's preview it. Okay, so there's a few more things that we can do to make this look perfect. So the first thing is we can actually add motion blur to the isolated dirt biker over here. Because we animated the position of that media over time, we can add motion blur. So let's go into the transform node for the isolated dirt biker here. And under settings inside the inspector, we can go to motion blur. If we select motion blur, we can see that we've added motion blur to the clip. Now, if I deselect it, you can see exactly what's going on here. Now, you want to make sure that you have the shutter angle at the perfect amount. A lot of the time, it will bump it up way too much. It'll be at like 180, and that just doesn't look good. So feel it out. Do what works best for your situation. In this case, about 30 looks good. It's tasteful. We're not overdoing it here, and it's going to help blend things in a lot better. Now, the next thing we want to do is remove any of the residue from the delta keyer. So this stuff down here, the delta keyer wasn't able to remove it. And if we went into the delta keyer, we could probably play with some of the parameters here to kind of refine the selection and to get rid of the part of the image that has a higher luminance. But we're going to just mask the dirt biker out and isolate him just to keep things simple for now. So what I can do is actually create a new ellipse mask. So let's create a new ellipse mask. Oh, but I want to make sure that I don't have any of my nodes selected here. So we'll create an ellipse mask just like that. And let's start animating the position, scale, and all of that over time so it just covers the dirt biker. So let's go to this frame over here, make sure that he is fully within the mask. And let's set a keyframe for the center, the width, the height, and the angle. Why not? Now we can move through time and just make sure that mask follows our dirt biker over here. So we can make it much smaller at this point. It doesn't need to be as big. That looks good to me. And we're going to want to move the entire mask out of the shot as well at the beginning there. And let's move forwards a bunch. Now, at this point, we can see that we no longer have any of that stuff spilling over. All of like that pinkish color from the sky is gone. So at this point, it doesn't really matter, but we're just going to continue the mask either way. So at this point, we can really just extend the mask to cover the full span of the entire image, because at this point, it's okay for us to have the entire image in the shot now. We're not trying to exclude anything at this point because there's no more spill happening at this point in time. It's really only at the beginning where we're going to want to isolate the dirt biker and remove all this other stuff here. So our mask is animated over time. Things look good. So now it's time to connect it. Let's grab the output of the mask, drop it into the mask input of the merge, and let's scrub through here and see what we got. So that looks pretty good. But if we deselect the ellipse mask and we zoom in, we can see we have a bit of a hard edge here. So what we want to do is select the ellipse mask. Let's soften the edge in the inspector here just a little bit. That looks good. And yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So the reason we have a bit of this red at the beginning of the dirt bike clip when he's entering the frame is because the red parameter here underneath background color, it's a little bit low. And if we bump it up a bit, we can see that that red starts to go away. So playing around with these parameters in the Delta here will allow us to get a better selection around our subject, and also to remove the things that we don't want in the shot. So just by changing that little red slider a little bit, I was able to remove that little redness in the shot. So I feel pretty good about this. Let's play it from the beginning and see where we're at. Awesome. So we've successfully created the acro to dirt bike transition within Fusion. Personally, I would say that it looks pretty seamless. I'm really happy with this outcome. I highly recommend that you guys download the original clips down below. Try this out yourselves. Post your results within the group. I'd love to see what you guys come up with. But that's it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned something new, and I'll catch you in the next one.